Don't be afraid to show the competition on your resume. Don't just tell me that you won a prize. Tell me about how many people competed. And don't just tell me that you got accepted into a program or a university. Tell me that there's only a 9% acceptance rate. Hey badasses, welcome back to Badass Careers, which is the YouTube channel all about helping you build a career and life you love. Pretty sweet, right? So I did a video about the biggest resume mistakes that I've seen after 10 years in HR and recruitment, and that I really don't want you making anymore, and you guys seem to love it. So this is part 2 to that, because there are heaps of resume mistakes that you can make. I want to tell you all about them so that you don't get caught out making them and losing your chance of impressing recruiters and hiring managers and landing those awesome job interviews. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it and let's unpack some of the biggest resume mistakes that you might be making. So the first resume mistake is undervaluing the importance of the formatting, the look, and the design of your resume. And I know I touched on it a little bit in the last video in terms of formatting, but it's really important that you will show them the level of excellence that you're willing to put into the role, because the resume of a person worth $100,000 per year and the resume of a person worth $40,000 a year may look quite different. And I just want to ask you concretely, like, which resume, if you know that recruiters have just 6 seconds to skim your resume and decide whether or not they're going to bother interview or not, would you rather meet just on first impressions alone this person or this person? No, the format's not everything. The content is king. That's the most important thing. It has to have substance. But if you can have the both, that's a winning resume. And if you set up a resume strategically enough, it actually builds your confidence and prepares you for a really positive salary negotiation round as well. I also got a lot of questions under the last resume video, which was around formatting. How long does it need to be? So big mistake here would be having a resume that's inappropriate long and just goes on and full of fluff and waffle and details that I didn't need to know, not to make this initial decision to interview. Once we're in the interview, you can tell me your life story, but I don't need to know it in your resume. So my golden rule is basically, if you've got 10 years experience or less, your resume should not be longer than 1 page, because you should be able to communicate succinctly and pitch yourself and market yourself in relation to that role. They don't need to know every single little thing you've ever achieved or you've ever done in your life. It's for that role. And then if you have 20 years experience or less, I'm sure you could get it down to 2 pages. In fact, I challenge you to. The next mistake I want to talk about is not leveraging your experience and what you've done and what you've achieved to the requirements of the job. So a lot of us have quite a wide background. We studied loads of different things. We've had different experiences, often internships, entry-level roles, lots and lots of different things that we could talk about. But what will make you stand out is making sure that you completely tailor this resume, this marketing pitch, to what they need to know and what they're looking for. So what I recommend is having almost a bank of your job title, the dates you worked there, what you did, and your key achievements from that role in a spreadsheet or something behind the scenes. And then for each tailored resume application that you're going to go for, you just pick out the bits that would be really, really relevant to this particular job description. This is because, and I'm going to give you an example. Imagine you're currently working in a retail position where you often interact with customers and you have to do the cash handling and deal with the transactions and take the cash down to the bank afterwards and open and close the store and all of that kind of stuff. But you want to apply for a role as a tour guide. Now, as a tour guide, what's going to be the most important thing to know about you? It's that you have experience working with customers, building relationships. You won an Employee of the Month award because of your excellent service skills. That stuff's interesting. The cash handling, the responsibility for locking and unlocking the store, less so. So you take that part of the experience and that goes on your CV for this tour guide position. It's sad to say, but a lot of recruiters just skim as well the first bullet point or maybe 2 under each experience section. I'm not saying the hiring manager won't read your resume in totality, but just keep that in mind as well, that if they're just skimming 1 point under each job title, what do you want them to know about you? And recruiters aren't bad people, by the way, but they receive overwhelming amounts of applications for each open job. They reckon recruiters get 300 applicants on average for each open job they're managing, and they're often managing several at a time. But if you're working somewhere like Google, they can get 7,000 applications for a single role. So it's just crazy. The next big resume mistake that I don't want you making is using eye candy graphics. So infographic style and that kind of thing. There are some exceptions to this, but basically I know that there's some cool resume templates floating around out there and they use like circle graphs and bars and icons and all of that kind of stuff. So you can use that absolutely to enhance the design, and I'm a big fan of that. But that kind of stuff can't be read by the ATS, by the applicant tracking system, which is the robot or algorithm that CVs and resumes are going through and being scanned to see whether the recruiter's even going to look at your resume or not, or you're just going to receive one of those automatic rejection emails. Because the applicant tracking system cannot read graphics, it needs text. It can also make a recruiter a little bit skeptical, because if you say these are your skills and you've got different bar links to say so, I mean, a recruiter's reaction might just be like, okay, well, prove it. You know, I mean, what does that mean? What does it mean to have an almost full bar and then half a bar? It's completely subjective. You don't know the scale, and it can come across as a little bit fluffy, to be honest. So if you do want to highlight specific skills that you really have, what I absolutely recommend is having a little section which is key skills or strengths, having the header and having a bullet point proving that. So not just claiming it, but having a proof point, an example, a number, something that you can use to back up your claim, and having 3 of those, for example, that you want to highlight on your resume. That works really well. The next point is very much linked to what I was talking about before, but the mistake is putting every single thing that you've ever done in your life on your resume. So way back to very first internships and things like that. Again, you don't have to put every single thing on your resume that you've ever done in your life. You can call the section career highlights, but you don't need to go on and on about irrelevant experiences. It's all about optimizing every centimeter of this marketing document and making the real estate count. Likewise, don't be afraid to leave some things off. Irrelevant certifications, software, languages, if it's not going to be useful. Again, we know as a person and our life and our experiences and our skills, it's more like this, right? We've got lots and lots of different things going on and things that we could pick from, but what I want you to do is really pick from them and sort of make it very concise and obvious and telling the story. Okay, I can do this job, boom. It's also really important because your resume should be crafted about what you want to do in the future, not everything you've done in the past. So if you can pick out the key skills, key competencies, key experiences that build up and tell the story to you applying for the job that you're currently applying for, it's going to play much more in your favor than anchoring you in past positions and maybe sometimes low-level responsibilities that you don't necessarily want to be associated with anymore. This mistake is pretty unforgivable, given that you're trying to pitch for an opportunity with tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of salary in any given year, and that is having typos and grammatical errors. So not only do you need to write the document, walk away, leave it for half a day and come back with fresh eyes and proofread it, but you need to ask at least one external person to proofread it for you. I highly encourage getting Grammarly, which is a Google Chrome extension, which gives you tips and suggestions about the structure of your sentences, and it also proofreads for you. Absolutely recommend getting that. Make sure you completely escape from any distractions and sit there with your resume in front of you and read it out loud, word by word. And what you can even do, so it's not too much for your brain, is hold a sheet of paper up to the screen and just go through it section by section, hiding what you're not currently reading with the sheet of paper so that you can really zoom in and focus on the section that you're currently reading. Another huge mistake is around consistency. So this is a major one. It's really important that what you have on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, because that's the natural next step for recruiters, matches. So dates match, and they absolutely should, because you should never be lying anyway on your resume. But I know sometimes people will tweak a job title so that it's more favorable and things which are absolutely in the realm of being okay to do, but they don't follow through on their LinkedIn, and the recruiter's like, what's going on here? Another huge mistake is not showing the competition. So how impressed would you be if I told you I got into my master's program in International Human Resource Management at La Sorbonne in Paris? Okay, cool. It's pretty impressive, right? I mean, I'm really happy that I did that, and it's a good achievement. But what if I told you that they received close to 1,000 applications from all around the world, gunning for just 20 places, and I got one of those? It's suddenly way more impressive, right? So don't be afraid to show the competition on your resume. Don't just tell me that you won a prize. Tell me about how many people competed. And don't just tell me that you got accepted into a program or a university. Tell me that there's only a 9% acceptance rate. Again, companies want to hire high achievers, And this provides social proof, which by the way is one of the most powerful forms of influence that many people tried, but you were one of the few that succeeded. And very much linked to the previous point is not associating yourself to the big brands that you can claim. So maybe you are a key account manager in France and you are managing Danone and L'Oreal and Chanel and Hermes and all of these amazing brands, but if you don't mention that, I'm not going to associate you with that kind of level of brand. One of the major principles of influence is all around authority. And when you associate yourself, think about who your clients have been, what projects you've worked on, where it ultimately ended up, all of these kinds of things. Are there any big names that you could somehow associate yourself with? Because that could help to lift your influence game tenfold. Some examples from my clients. I actually had a client who was working back in India as a fashion designer, and she was working for brands like Topshop, Wrangler, H&M, Zara, really big brands. So by putting those on her CV, it takes her from, okay, I was working as a fashion designer in India to I was working as a fashion designer for global brands. Or if you're creating social media videos at L'Oreal, for example, and you worked with Emma Watson, you could say on your resume, I created a video with Emma Watson which reached 60,000 views. Another one of my clients is a Yale student, and she wanted to introduce a fashion speaker series to Yale, something that didn't exist. And she was able to get amazing people from the fashion industry to show up in her speaker series, and she was able to talk about these people and name them on her resume. Again, it lifts your level of authority and influence by associating yourself with successful people, brands, companies, all of that good stuff. One bonus tip here is if you're currently a student, you can do this by becoming a campus ambassador, volunteering for a notable company, maybe writing your master's thesis and pitching it to some notable companies to collaborate with you. So you'll help them to solve one of their business problems and you'll basically write your thesis for them with them in mind. There's loads of ways that you can start associating yourselves with notable names and companies. Another mistake that we don't really think about in this day and age, but it's not bringing copies of your resume with you to the interview. It always helps to have 5 copies just printed out that you can refer to and you can give to your interviewers as well. And the last mistake that I'll leave you with is not following up. So just submitting the resume and not contacting the recruiter and or the hiring manager on LinkedIn or via email, and basically following up to have a second chance of that resume being seen. So guys, I hope that you found that interesting and really useful, and that these resume mistakes will be a thing of the past for you. And if you're the kind of person that gives a shiz about your career and you want it to be really successful and fulfilling without the overwhelm and without the burnout, then you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and I'll be coming at you with new content every single week on the Badass Careers YouTube channel. And don't forget to grab your freebie, the Killer Resume Cheat Sheet, which is down in my description box down below. Until then, stay badass and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!